Christine Rupp, Executive Director of Dade Heritage Trust. Because when I first moved to Miami in 1993, I didn't know a soul here, and I started driving around Miami to acquaint myself with the different areas, and I happened upon the Dade Heritage Trust headquarters, this little historic building in the middle of Brickell. So I thought, this is strange. What's this building about? So I started doing some volunteer work for Dade Heritage Trust back in the 90s. And from that, I met a lot of people involved in the nonprofit and preservation community, and I ended up holding myself out as a consultant. I would go into smaller nonprofits and help them with their administrative tasks, maybe some program and event planning. And then in 2007, I was contacted by the board of directors at the Coral Gables Museum to do the same thing. And that eventually morphed into me becoming the director at the museum about 5 years later. As executive director, I wear many hats at Dade Heritage Trust, from grant writing to making appointments with politicians, developing strategies, how we can make preservation more relevant, how we can make preservation have more of a positive face. It's not anti-development, it's really about creating a more positive sense of place for Miami. So along with the politics, the grant writing, I'm also responsible for all administrative tasks. Networking obviously is very important, and I'm the chief liaison to the board of directors. I don't have a staff right now, but I'm going to have an assistant pretty soon. We have a nice team of volunteers. We are a dedicated visitors center for the Convention and Visitors Bureau, so we have to be staffed 7 days a week. I have people that assist on the weekends. I have volunteer tour guides, and then I also rely on volunteers to assist in events and some programs, which we're furthering this coming year. Because of all the hats that I wear at Dade Heritage Trust right now, and the fact that we're an official visitor center, so we have people walking in on a daily basis, I try to best serve the people that come into the place. Number one, again, going back to that sense of positivity, always making sure that people have had a dialogue or an experience with Dade Heritage Trust that was positive. And of course, it's really important when people are visiting Miami that you leave them with a good experience. So I'm often called upon to talk about the history of Miami, give directions along with wearing that executive director hat. So customers come first, or clients come first, and then fundraising is a big priority, as it is with any nonprofit. So grant writing, calling on businesses or foundations for assistance, and of course keeping the board always in the know about what's happening at Dade Heritage Trust. I think the best thing about my job, with all the challenges of preservation in Miami, is the fact that on a daily basis I network or I partner with people that really care about this community. And so I think we keep each other going as far as how we develop strategies to maintain a presence and a relevant presence in Miami. But again, that networking of people that care about this place and care on a variety of levels, not just arts, but affordable housing, make sure Miami has more of a sense of economic equality. There's so many things that preservation can assist with. So I find networking with those people that are like-minded really keeps me going also. Preservation, historic preservation, can do so much for the community if used properly as a tool. Our mission at Dade Heritage Trust is to maintain Miami-Dade County's sense of heritage with regard to architecture, the environment, and the culture. So for preservation to be relevant, we have to look at those issues that are affecting Miami right now. Gentrification, affordable housing, economic equality, I think, are probably some of the biggest. If we're able to partner with local community agencies, governments, developers, and other community activists to integrate a sense of preservation into a neighborhood, that means we're saving that historic building stock. We could create affordable housing through that building stock and make sure that those people that live in urban neighborhoods aren't displaced. They get to stay there. They get to maintain their sense of neighborhood. And with preservation efforts and our partners, we can enhance that neighborhood. And, well, since I've been involved in Dade Heritage Trust in the last year and a half, I will tell you two things, and I'll start with the present and then work backwards. When I first came on, I was contacted by the National Trust for Historic Preservation to start thinking about Little Havana as an urban neighborhood. Like many Miami urban neighborhoods, that historic building stock is being displaced, as are the residents. So the National Trust realized a neighborhood like Little Havana, with its vast amounts of historic building inventory, its spicy culture and diversity, and its great heritage, would be an excellent example of looking at an urban neighborhood and coming up with a long-term plan that addresses all those issues. Mm-hmm. So the National Trust, working with Dade Heritage Trust, held a series of workshops and focus groups where we invited developers, realtors, business owners in Little Havana, residents, community activists, nonprofits, to formulate a plan. And in January of this year, the National Trust named Little Havana a national treasure. This is a huge announcement for the neighborhood. It's not an official designation. It doesn't mean anything specific. The National Trust looks at their National Treasure Program and deals with them on a one-by-one basis. What direction should we take? And after having those meetings and focus groups with these shareholders in the community, the National Trust determined that the best thing to do would be to come up with a grand plan or an urban plan for this neighborhood. So the National Trust for Historic Preservation, Dade Heritage Trust, a wonderful planning firm called Pluserbia, the Health Foundation of South Florida, and the City of Miami, through their Live Healthy Little Havana initiative, have all become partners on this planning process. And we're going to announce the master plan in July and hand it off to the city. So that's a big one. A lot of time and resources into this plan. Second one, of course, is the Miami Marine Stadium. Through the efforts of Dade Heritage Trust, early on, as a force to fight the demolition of the stadium, we were able to successfully work with city officials to understand the significance of that building. A spin-off organization was formed called Friends of the Marine Stadium, which sort of, took that ball and ran with it. And then we have stayed in constant communication with the city and the National Trust about preserving the stadium. The Marine Stadium is another national treasure. So we have two right here in Miami through the National Trust. We continually communicate with city officials about the trust. We also have a representative on the Virginia Key Advisory Board, which helps guide that future for the stadium.